They're coming here. They're waiting at the edge of the city. They peer around buildings at night. And they'll take you one by one, and no one will hear you scream. No one will hear you scream.
Yo, what's good, everybody? It's your boy Walterdoom back for another episode of Film and Guts, the podcast that is much more than just horror. And yes, this is now the official tagline. I mean, I'm gonna say this, y'all. As y'all know, I've been on this podcast thing for like on and off for maybe 5, 6, maybe 7 years or so. And I mean, yeah, we're a small community of followers and subscribers, you know, because that's, I mean, again, like, I don't do this for the clout, bro. I don't do this for the clout. I do this for my damn self, you know. And I know the algorithms on YouTube and Spotify, you know, they're not really fans of the things I say or how I speak about things or how I do my content. But I mean, that's me at the end of the day. I do it for myself. I ain't doing it for like anybody else, you know. And when I started this podcast, y'all, you know, I was out here, you know, and I'm sorry, y'all, but my mom is from the South, so every now and then, I don't know, nowadays that Southern drawl is coming out of me for whatever reason. I mean, I've been born and raised out of LA for my whole entire life, but I don't know, for some reason I think that Southern drawl is starting to come out. You know, my mom's from Mississippi, bro, but so irrelevant. But anyway, but yeah, y'all might hear some things where I might, you know, slur up some words a bit, you know, and I'm starting to notice that even more. But y'all gotta excuse me, that's just how I've been talking lately, you know. Yeah, your boy, you know, when I started this podcast, and I hate to go into story time so early with this, but it goes back to what this tagline is all about. You know, I started this podcast just for me, for the sake of me having an outlet. And I knew I love horror movies. I love watching them. You know, I've always been a big fan, and I mean, I feel like for those that listen to my podcast a lot, you know, y'all know I've been a big horror fan since I was young. I started off being afraid of Chucky, gained some courage and actually watched Chucky. Ain't afraid of him no more. Used to be scared of the Thriller video. Ain't scared of that no more. Used to watch a lot of kids shows where it was very horror thing. So, I mean, the horror roots is there. I hate that, you know, maybe I'm not so much of the big, knowledgeable, geeked out, regurgitating everything because I memorize a whole bunch of dates and actors, backgrounds and shit like that. I'm sorry, but that's just not me. I'm sorry, I would never be that person. The only thing I will be is somebody who will review movies, give my opinion, and talk to the people who is out there doing the damn thing, you know. And I mean, the podcast was never meant to go out to talk to people, but it's, in a way, it grew to be that, and I love that it grew organically to be that. Going out from there, you know, for me, it was always about just like giving my opinions, talking about movies that I like to watch. And not necessarily trying to be like a big influencer type person or anything like that. I mean, if anything, I'm always like telling myself like, man, I ain't even for the public. I mean, in my real life, I ain't even really for the public like that. But you know what? I'm for the people who care. You know, at the end of the day, I'm an acquired taste for people who love my shit. I mean, I'm probably gonna be like somebody like your podcaster's favorite podcaster or some shit like that, or your creator's favorite creator. You know, I ain't even gonna be like that, you know? Like the whole bootlicking, I'm sorry. I let me not be disrespectful, but yeah, I know I ain't gonna be somebody who is gonna be like super big, popular, or some shit like that. I ain't even putting my money on that. But what I am is, a horror podcast that talks about so much more than horror, because the real horror out there is the reality of the world. And yeah, we do need the escape of movies, which we do love this genre, which is the escape, you know? But the thing is like sometimes we have to protect this genre. And that's why also it has to be bigger than just talking about horror movies, We got to also protect this genre because a lot of people out there who aren't horror fans or who are fake horror fans attack this genre as much as they can in any way possible. So I say this as a new tagline for this show. It is bigger than horror. So yeah, welcome to Film and Guts, where your host Walterdoom talks all that shit. Talks all that shit on this podcast on the airways for who knows how many minutes this podcast is gonna be today. So yeah, man. But yeah, your boy is back, gone from like a long ass vacation. It's not really a vacation, but a mental health break and what have you. But as y'all see for today's topic, this topic that we're going to get into today is dealing with the Oscars, which has passed, depending on when you listen to this, some time ago, like last month and shit. Let's first off start off with, the introduction of me talking about my history, which I like to start this show off is just talking about a little bit my thoughts about my relationship with the Oscars. So, the Oscars is a long-running award show, as everybody knows. It nominates various movies in all different types of genres. And the one thing about the Oscars is I've never been a fan. I never really cared about the Oscars. As long as it's been running, I never have been the person to sit down and want to watch the Oscar show. I've always been a Grammys guy because I love music, like my mom got me really into like a lot of like old school R&B when I was a little kid. My older sister, she got me into like the 90s R&B and what have you, Tevin Campbell, Boyz II Men, SWV, shit like that, bro. I've always been a Grammys guy. I've always watched the Grammys. I also used to watch the American Music Awards. I never really been much of a movie awards type person because most of the movies I like never really get nominated for any of these awards to begin with. Especially the Oscars. I would never see a fucking movie like The Butterfly Effect get nominated. I would never see a movie like Identity get nominated for an Oscar. I would never see Saw get nominated for an Oscar. The movies that I like never really get nominated for anything that would be deemed Oscar worthy. I never really been into it as a kid, and I definitely wasn't into it in 2015 when they had this whole trend about how the Oscar was so white. I don't know if y'all remember this, but in 2015, during the Oscar nominations, there was a lot of movies that were nominated, and a lot of the nominations went to only white actors and actresses. No one black or Latino or Asian were remotely like considered into like the main top 5 categories of the Oscars. And I mean, we all know we only watch the Oscars for the top 5, Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Director, Best Screenplay. I mean, it's like we don't care really about all those other categories. We care only about those top 5 categories for the Oscars. So for those actors and actresses of minorities descent not being nominated for any of those categories, it was a slap in the face. So it really spawned that Oscar so white hashtag, and it really just didn't make me a fan of even watching the show even more. Now, but I do have to say, I can't say I never watched the Oscars before. I mean, I turned on the Oscars a couple of times when I was younger, and it didn't really interest me. I mean, it seemed kind of boring to me. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I'm someone who likes a lot of excitement, and I'm sorry, I'm probably on a dopamine rager, you know, where I need to see like a bunch of shit just flash at me and what have you. But each time I see the Oscars, it just seems like everyone is so and I'm trying to find the right word to say it, not really cordial, but it seems very plain. Like, it's so bland. It's very bland. Like, the atmosphere feels bland. You know, like, you get these hosts who aren't really that funny. I'm sorry. You know, like, that's just how I feel. I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, if I'm not mistaken, Ellen DeGeneres was, like, the host of the Oscars for many years. She's really not that funny to me, but yeah, and it just comes off as very bland and lackluster, and I'm just always like, who will want to watch this show besides like people who are in their 60s and 70s? You know what I'm saying? But and I'm sorry for those that do actually like to watch the Oscars. I mean, but this is just how I feel about the Oscars. I'm not really a fan of it. I mean, honestly. But I have watched the Oscars in its entirety in 22 and 2023, or maybe it was 21 and 23. I can't remember. I know I've seen 2 Oscar shows entirely. I don't even remember when the Will Smith shit, because that's probably like another reason to watch. But yeah, I've seen the Oscars in the past, for the past couple of years, because of the person I was with, and they are really into like the Oscar show. And I mean, no knock on her, because she really loves the Oscars, so that's her thing. And I'm not gonna knock anybody. And I'm gonna be real, I ain't gonna knock anybody who loves the Oscars. It's just not for me. I'ma just say that. So I gave it a chance to watch it, and I mean, the couple of years that I did watch it, it was all right, but it still was a bit bland to me, because it just doesn't have that much excitement as the Grammys do. And I mean, and not to say like the Grammys is always a hit with like what they do, because I'm gonna be honest, the Grammys for the past couple of years have been very lackluster to me. Not only with just the awards they've been giving people, but also just the show in general has not really been it for me. But the Oscars, it was still like kind of bland. I mean, I guess the most exciting thing to see about the Oscars is just the unpredictability of things happening, especially when Will Smith slapped the shit out of Chris Rock. I mean, who the fuck thought that was gonna happen, you know? and sadly to see, Will Smith wins his first fucking Oscar for the movie that he was in. And unfortunately, it happened the same night he slapped the shit out of Chris Rock, which they immediately stripped him of his Oscar. So, yeah, this kind of goes back to my whole thing about like just, and even though I didn't say it earlier, but just the Oscars just being so white bread, you know, and bland, and they just want like this whole bland culture of behavior during their shows. Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, Will Smith was wrong, but man, the punishment they gave him was excessive. And it makes me wonder, like, well, if it was like Robert Downey Jr. or Leonardo DiCaprio or Jack Nicholson, who are always kind of like seem like they are considered for Oscar nominations, but they don't usually win a lot of times. If they had did the same thing, would they be punished as much? So I mean, it makes me feel like for me, it has never been always about black culture in a way. And I don't think like, the Oscar panelists, the people who are involved with the Oscars, they really support black creators or black actors and actresses like we think they should. So I really don't think they're all about like people who are minorities like that. Yeah, they have the whole international foreign language categories, but do they really give a fuck about those people, honestly? So, yeah, for me, I've always been like, I don't really care. I really don't care, because at the end of the day, I don't think they care about us in particularly. So for me, it's always been like, why should I watch an award show that doesn't really support my culture? Because there's been probably plenty of black movies that should have been Oscar nominated and probably didn't even get nominated. Not even for a single thing. But we ain't even talking about that because this is a horror show. This year's Oscars, I missed it entirely. But I mean, it's just like not me hating it. It's just more like my own mental health and headspace and what have you. Hasn't really been into a lot of things lately. But it's just not only the Oscars I missed this year. I've also missed the Grammys, and I just missed a lot of things, honestly, this year. Even though I'm not really a big fan of the Oscars, I mean, if I was in the right mental headspace to watch it, I probably would have watched it. I probably would have watched the Grammys as well. But I just missed it. And honestly, I just haven't been really interested in watching any of that stuff at all. So, yeah, so I just really didn't care. But going into the show now, I want to talk about the nominations that were given to the Oscars and just like how horror was hugely dismissed and was a huge miss for the panelists as well. Yeah, so I want to talk about right now the horror movies that were actually nominated and they won an Academy Award. So, as y'all know, horror has been hugely overlooked by the Academy for whatever reason. We have an extensive library of movies, even though not Oscar worthy. We have movies that are definitely should be nominated for an Oscar in some way and somehow. So let's talk about some of the movies that have been nominated and they actually won an Oscar. This post is by Bloody Disgusting. They actually made a post on Instagram highlighting the movies that were actually nominated and won. First movie that has actually won something was Best Actor Frederick March in the movie Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I haven't seen that movie before. Another movie that has been nominated and won was Best Supporting Actress Ruth Gordon for Rosemary's Baby. The Exorcist has won for Best Sound and Best Adapted Screenplay. Jaws won 3 Oscars for Best Editing, Best Sound, and Best Dramatic Score. The Omen won for Best Dramatic Score. Alien won for Best Visual Effects. American Werewolf in London won for Best Makeup. The Fly won for Best Makeup. Misery won Best actress for in one of the top 5. And so out of all of these so far, we've only heard 2 actors and actresses winning one of the top 5 categories for the Oscars. So Kathy Bates won for Best Actress in Misery. And I gotta say, that is definitely a well-deserved trophy for that performance. Now, here we are. On to the next movie. And this one is a big one that won a lot of awards. But a lot of people argue whether this is a horror movie or not. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we're talking about Silence of the Lambs. Won for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Silence of the Lamb is probably the only quote-unquote horror movie, because again, a lot of people don't know whether to categorize this movie as a horror movie or not. But it's probably the only horror movie that has won multiple awards in one single award show. Dracula. Yeah, we're talking about the Gary Oldman Dracula, the one that was actually really adapted from the book. Won only, mind you, this is the only awards it won: Best Sound Editing, Best Makeup, and Best Costume Design. I can't believe Gary Oldman didn't win for Best Actor. Sleepy Hollow, this is the one with Johnny Depp, won for Best Art Direction. That's it. That is it. And that one's a really good movie too. I'm surprised this one didn't win more awards than it did. The Wolfman won for Best Makeup. I can't believe this movie was nominated, because I think I watched this movie too and I didn't really care for it. But not me commentating though. Get Out won for Best Original Screenplay. And honestly speaking, I think it should have won more awards than that. Best Actor and Best Picture, honestly. And the last one is Best Visual Effects go to Godzilla -1. So if y'all notice, out of all those movies that I talked about or just list out just now, there's only been 3, count it, 3 that have won in the Big 5 category. And it's only been 1 movie that has won multiple awards in the Big 5 category. And actually, I think it won all 5, if I'm not mistaken. And honestly speaking, it goes back to what I've said before. We don't even know how to categorize Silence of the Lambs, but us horror fans have embraced that movie as a horror movie. Some of us have, some of us haven't. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. So, out of all those movies, only 3 have won in the Big 5 category. Only 1 movie has won multiple categories and actually took more than just 1 award in the Big 5. I think it actually swept the Big 5. It goes to show you how much the award show really pays attention to our genre, or even tries to award our genre. So let's get into, how did the award show treat our genre this year? Well, as y'all know, if y'all have been listening to this show religiously, y'all know I haven't really watched that many 2024 films at all. There's been a handful of movies I've watched. I mean, I think in total I've watched maybe I can't remember. It's probably in the realm, sadly, of maybe 20 something films, or 30 maybe. But yeah, last year just was not a good year to me as far as horror movies went. But there were some standout films that I believe should be Oscar worthy of some kind, in a way. So there were some snubs. These are my personal snubs. This is not anybody else's snubs. This is not Blade Disgusting's, I Horror, or anybody like that. No, these are my personal snubs that I wrote down. And it's 3 films that I feel like were definitely snubbed in some type of category. So, first off, I saw the TV Glow. Y'all know how much I love that film. Y'all been hearing me go on and on about this film for who knows how long, honestly. So, for me to see I Saw the TV Glow not even get nominated, but just snubbed out of Best Picture, Best Original Screenplay, it's tragic to me, to be honest. I mean, yeah, okay, we could talk about it not being the best picture, but honestly, in the horror spirit, all creators that I've seen so far that have like, or even just like people who like movies in general, I've seen them rank I Saw the TV Glow very freaking high. So to see I Saw the TV Glow not get nominated for at least Best Original Screenplay was a huge miss. Late Night with the Devil, another huge miss. Should have been nominated for Best Original Screenplay, Best Actor, which is David Dastmalchian, and Best Visual Effects. I'm sorry. They put their foot in this movie with all the research that they did to make it look like a stand-up, well, not really a stand-up show, but a late night show of the 70s. It was amazing. The effects were amazing. The visual effects were amazing. The acting by David Dastmalchian was amazing. To see that this movie did not get nominated or even just thought of in at least visual effects. Come on, bro. Y'all couldn't put them for visual effects. It's insane to me. Or even just Best Actor for David Dastmalchian. He really showed out in this film. I will admit the film is not perfect, especially towards the end. It's not really that perfect, but for the most part, this movie is really good. And I mean, you never seen a movie written so original like this one. So how does this one not get nominated for original screenplay? Terrifier 3. I know this one is my personal add-on. I will admit that. But Terrifier 3 should have been nominated for visual effects. I'm sorry. If y'all have seen Terrifier 3, y'all know what I'm talking about. We don't even have to go into details about like the visual effects in this movie. This movie should have been nominated for best visual effects. I'm sorry. You know, I don't know who the hell won for visual effects, to be honest. But they should have nominated my boy Art the Clown and what he was doing in Terrifier 3, bro. So yeah, huge miss by the Oscars, you know. So yeah, those are my Oscar snubs of this year. But I mean, it is nothing new for the Oscars to snub well-deserved movies that were written well or produced well, or films that would definitely benefit from some of those categories that they made. So let's get into some of these historic snubs from the past, because the movies that I've mentioned, they're not the only ones. There are other movies that have been historically snubbed from the Oscars. So these are movies that I've also kind of like thought about, that I thought were really good, that I thought like, damn, you know, this movie would have at least won something in that category, or at least been nominated. So yeah, let's get into the historic snubs right now. Yo, Walterdoom here, and if you guys are enjoying this podcast and you want to donate to the show, yo, your boy got a Ko-fi account. Make sure you check that out in the link in the bio and donate whatever you can. Also, if you are a creator, a director, or anybody that's involved with podcasting or film and you want to come along on a podcast and talk with your boy, hit me up. My email is in the description, and you can hit me up on Instagram on Walterdoom Horror. Also, if you are enjoying the show and you love your boy and you want to give him like a few follows, likes, subscribe, comments, go ahead. It's free 99 to do that. Other than that, let's get back to the show. Yeah, so there are 5 movies that I put down that were historically snubbed from the Oscars that I felt like should have won something or should have been nominated for something. The first movie that I want to talk about is The Babadook. The Babadook should have been at least nominated for Best Actress for Essie Davis's performances, Best Original Screenplay Writing, and Jennifer Kent being nominated for Best Director. So let's talk about it. So this, I can't remember what year this was, but in this Oscar year, the winner for Best Actress was Julianne Moore in Still Alice. Some of the nominees were Marion Cotillard in 2 Days, One Night, Felicity Jones in The Theory of Everything, which I believe is the Stephen Hawking's movie, which I didn't see. I wasn't even interested in that movie. Gone Girl, Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl, which I believe should have won in my opinion, because Rosamund Pike, she was doing her damn thing and she was a psychotic in that fucking movie. And Reese Witherspoon in the movie Wild, which I'm like, is this really a movie? I never heard of it before, but let's talk about it. Why do I always feel like, and I don't know if anyone else felt like this before, but why does it always feel like whatever movie wins the Oscar, it's always some no-name movie no one has ever really heard of? Honestly, I'm sorry, but every year in this, and I remember this when I was younger, and this is something that, I mean, again, it's no knock to, because I'm pretty sure the cinephiles out there are probably not liking my comment right now, but fuck them. But to me, I've always felt like these movies that I have never heard of, and I get it, like, they're not box office movies. They're movies that are made literally for the Oscars. So it makes sense that a lot of these movies aren't really as popular as it's supposed to be made seem. Now, I remember when I was younger, I felt like whatever movie won the Oscar, or like I heard about a movie that won an Oscar, we're supposed to like it because it's like it won an Oscar. It's this high, intelligent, deep thoughted film and what have you. But me being who I am today and understanding like a lot of these movies are basically pandering or lobby to the Academy or some type of way, it's always lobbied some way or some form, it's like this boys club and what have you. I've come to realize these movies aren't really as deep thoughted as it is, and actually I'm gonna talk about some of the Oscar movies that have won in the past. A lot of times I feel like the movies that win an Oscar for like Best Picture or any of the top 5 categories is usually like this movie that is a trendy movie of the time, or what the Oscars like at the time. I have come to realize a lot of classic films have been grossly overlooked and have been like runner-ups or even not even nominated at all. Going through this list of Best Actress for The Babadook right now, Essie Davis should have been nominated. Who in the hell is still talking about Marion Cotillard's performance in 2 Days, One Night? Who is talking about Felicity Jones's performance in The Theory of Everything? At least in Gone Girl, people are still talking about Rosamund Pike, and I mean, she's even being memed. I mean, I've memed her like sometime last year. People are still at least talking about Gone Girl. I can find Gone Girl on Hulu. I can't find The Theory of Everything on any platform. I can't find 2 Days, One Night on any platform. And Reese Witherspoon's movie? Who the fuck made that movie? When the fuck was that a movie? What was this movie even about? Why was it even nominated? I'm sorry, but Essie Davis' performance in The Babadook stumps a lot of these other women's performances. Let's get into the original screenplay. So, for original screenplay, I feel like The Babadook should at least been nominated because, again, it is an original film. It gets no more original than a storybook that is haunting you. A storybook monster that is haunting you. What other movies have done that before? I'm sorry, but yeah. The winner of that movie that year, and actually it was the winner of a lot of awards that year, was Birdman. And I'm not going to say Birdman doesn't deserve it. Birdman is a really great film. I love that movie. Even though it's an Oscar type movie, it was a really good movie. And I'm not even going to knock it because it was literally a movie about, oh my goodness, why am I forgetting his name? I was about to say Bruce Willis, but Michael Keaton. It was literally a movie about Michael Keaton leaving his Batman role. Literally that. It was literally that. So, but they satirized it in a way to where it made it like a little bit different, but yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a really good movie. But there were other movies that were nominated that it makes you kind of question, like, who is nominating these films? So the other nominees for the best original screenplay writing went to Boyhood, which I get was like a big film back in its time when this movie was created. But again, no one is really talking about it, but we can definitely find this on a platform. I just seen it on, I think I seen it on AMC Plus. That's where I think I saw it. Foxcatcher, don't know what the fuck that is, but I think that movie had George Clooney, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong, but don't at me on that. The Grand Budapest Hotel, I remember that movie. People made a big deal about that movie, but who the hell is talking about Grand Budapest Hotel now? I'm sorry, not to be disrespectful. And Nightcrawler, the movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. Also another well-deserved movie that needed to be nominated. Best Director, like I said, Jennifer Kent should have been nominated at least for Best Director. But the movies that won, again, Birdman won for that one. Well-deserved. I'm not even going to knock him on that one. Nominees was Richard Linklater for Boyhood. I know I'm butchering his name. Bennett Miller for Foxcatcher. Wes Anderson for Grand Budapest Hotel. Well, now we know why that was nominated. And Moran Tildum for Imitation Game. And this is where I go, why? Why? I have never heard of this movie before. I don't even know if anybody else has heard of this movie or even still watches this movie or even put it in their like top 5. Come on, man. No one's talking about that fucking movie. Y'all did Jennifer Kent dirty. And also, if this movie had existed for if it existed for Best Foreign Language Film, it would probably been nominated for, I'm sorry, I'm not Best Foreign Language. That's what the category that was existing at the time was Best Foreign Language Film. But if there was Best International Film, I feel like it could have been nominated for that. But it wasn't. So moving on. The second movie that was an historic snub was Toni Collette for Best Actress in the movie Hereditary. Yeah. Jaw drop, everyone. Jaw drop on that bitch. But yeah, Toni Collette was hugely snubbed for that movie. And some of the movies that won before her, or the nominees that got it before her, went to Olivia Colman, who was the winner for that category for the movie The Favorite. I didn't watch that movie. I think what's her face? Emma Stone was in that movie, if I'm not mistaken. The nominees for that category went to, and I'm gonna butcher the shit out of her name, but Yalitza Aparicio for Roma, which I remember was a movie, but didn't watch that shit, didn't really care. Glenn Close in The Wife, okay. Lady Gaga, A Star Is Born, and Melissa McCarthy in Can You Ever Forgive Me. A lot of quote unquote high quality actresses or movies that actresses were in being nominated, but Toni Collette's performance was stellar. It was a stellar performance. How does Toni Collette not get nominated before Glenn Close? Who the fuck is talking about this movie, The Wife? I'm sorry. Who is talking about this movie? Who is talking about Melissa McCarthy's performance in Can You Ever Forgive Me? I don't even know what that is. But yes, I'm being disrespectful right now, you know. I don't even care, bro, but I'm gonna just say this, like, none of those movies, and I'm pretty sure none of their performances came close to Toni Collette's performance in Hereditary. I'm sorry, dude. Another movie that was like historically snubbed was Psycho, in the 1960 version of that movie. Yes, Anthony Perkins was snubbed for being Best Actor, and if this category had existed, it should have been in there, but for Best Original Screenplay, that was also a snub too. But I mean, again, that wasn't a category for back in the day. So, Doom, what won? What got nominated and what won? Well, I'm gonna tell you, Team Doom. Here's what won over Anthony Perkins. The winner for that category was Burt Lancaster for Elmer Gantry. Okay. Nominees, the other nominees, I should say, was Trevor Howard in Sons and Lovers, Jack Lemmon, and oh, I'm sorry, For Each Time There's a Space. I'm actually shrugging my shoulders. Y'all can't see that. But yeah, I'm just sitting here like, okay. Jack Lemmon for The Apartment. Okay. Laurence Olivier for The Entertainer. Okay. And Spencer Tracy in Inherit the Wind. Huge ball dropped. They were dropping many balls on this one, as Summer would say on Rick and Morty. Moving on to the next movie, because I want to kind of get through this whole thing. We got two more movies that I want to talk about that were historic snubs, and these movies will surprise the shit out of you. I'm actually surprised that Psycho didn't get nominated for anything, at least for Best Score. At least that didn't even get nominated for that too. But moving on. So, The Shining is the next movie that I want to talk about that also wasn't nominated for anything at all. Categories that I think it should have been nominated for was Best Actor with Jack Nicholson, Stanley Kubrick for Best Director, Best Motion Picture. And I'm going to say this, the movies that were nominated and won, who the fuck is talking about these movies now? Who is talking about them? No one. Fucking no one. I'm going to tell you that right now. But anyway, starting off with, and actually, before I get into it, there's also a bit of some controversy with this one, with The Shining, which was shocked the hell out of you because it shocked the hell out of me when I found out about this. But first thing first, Jack Nicholson should have been nominated for Best Actor. What won? Robert De Niro for Raging Bull. I have nothing to say about Raging Bull. I'm not going to talk shit about Raging Bull. You know, I never really heard of this movie before, but apparently it's a movie that stood the test of time. So, and have seen clips of Raging Bull, you know, here and there. So, for me, I'm not going to talk about something that has actually stood the test of time versus all the other bullshit that got nominated or won. But Robert De Niro won for Best Actor in Raging Bull. So well deserved on his part. But the nominees, Robert Duvall in The Great Santini. Who the fuck knows about that movie? John Hurt in The Elephant Man. Don't fucking care. Jack Lemmon again in some bullshit. I'm sorry, y'all. But I shouldn't be going like that. But Jack Lemmon in Tribute. Peter O'Toole in The Stuntman. Don't fucking care about that either. Stanley Kubrick, like I mentioned, should have been winning for Best Director. What won? Robert Redford for Ordinary People. Nominees, David Lynch for The Elephant Man. Okay, we see why that was nominated. Nothing against David Lynch, but just don't fucking care about that movie because who the fuck is talking about The Elephant Man like that? Martin Scorsese for Raging Bull. Well deserved. It's Martin Scorsese. Don't really have much to say against him. Richard Rush for The Stuntman, don't fucking care, and Roman Polanski for Tess, who nominated that pedophile. For Best Motion Picture, which I mentioned before, I feel like The Shining should have been nominated for that, at least nominated, but what won? Ordinary People. Who the fuck is talking about Ordinary People? Don't fucking care. Other nominees were Coal Miner's Daughter. Who's talking about this movie? No one cares. The Elephant Man, like I said, don't care. Raging Bull should have won, but didn't. And the movie Test, who the fuck cares? Here's a little tidbit about The Shining that will literally shock a lot of you. It didn't even get nominated for a Golden Globes either. Shocking. But you know what it did get nominated for? It was nominated for the Razzies. Yes, for the first ever Razzies that took place. And mind you, for those that don't know what the Razzies are, the Razzie awards people for having the worst film in Hollywood. The worst. Mind you, we're talking about The Shining. Even though I believe what's his name? Stephen King. I believe Stephen King didn't really like The Shining, but the movie itself is a horror classic. Stood the test of time. But it was nominated for 2 Razzies. It was nominated for Worst Director and Worst Actress to Shelley Duvall. Fortunately, in 2022, the Razzies rescinded their nomination to Duvall because they found out about how she was being mistreated by Stanley Kubrick, which pretty much impacted her performance in the movie. But they didn't take away the worst director. They didn't take away worst directors. Stanley Kubrick is still in history seen as worst director in the first ever Razzies. The first ever Razzies for The Shining. The movie that people still talk about to this day. Why did the Razzies nominate The Shining as worst director? Well, the founder, John J.B. Wilson, said he didn't like the movie because he hoped that the movie was more like the book, but it wasn't. Now, here's my rebuttal to that one. How many movies have you seen actually stick to the book? Not many movies have stuck to the source material. There are moments in movies like Frankenstein, and I'm talking about movies that stuck really close to the book, but there's moments like Frankenstein and Dracula where even though they stuck close to the book, there are moments where they did not stick to the book. So what the hell is this guy talking about? What is he talking about, y'all? So my thing right now is like, broski out here talking about some, yeah, you know, The Shining was so bad. It was poorly directed. But it's like, you didn't put him for worst picture. You didn't. You put it down for worst director. And your excuse is, oh, because the movie wasn't like the book. Okay, that sounds more like a writing issue than a director issue. You get me, Team Doom? So, yeah, I feel like it's a fallacy right now that Stanley Kubrick, right now in history, is sitting as worst director for The Shining, a movie that is still highly popular and highly satirized in a lot of things. So, again, a movie that stood the test of time, been snubbed by the Oscars, snubbed by the Golden Globes, but was given a nomination for a Razzie. Moving forward, Team Doom, to the last movie that I want to talk about that was a huge snub was Midsommar. Yeah, I know some of y'all might not like what I'm saying right now, but I think Midsommar should have been nominated. At least Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh should have been nominated for Best Leading Actress. That year in the Oscars, she was nominated. She was nominated for sure. But she wasn't nominated for Midsommar. But she was nominated for Best Supporting Role in Little Women. What won, Team Doom? In Best Leading Actress? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. Renee Zellweger won for Judy. We ain't even going to get into that. But let's go ahead and let's look at the other nominees that were in the category for Best Leading Actress. So Cynthia Erivo was nominated for her role in Harriet. Scarlett Johansson, that's babe right there, was nominated for Marriage Story. Saoirse Ronan was nominated for Little Women. And Charlize Theron was nominated for Bombshell. Yeah, looking at these supporting, well, not supporting, but looking at these best actresses, yeah, Florence Pugh should have at least been nominated for Midsommar because her performance was definitely a standout in the movie. I mean, but I guess people probably was like, this bitch crying through too much throughout this film, but hey man, but you know, Florence Pugh did her thing. I mean, I feel like Midsommar wouldn't have been as divisive as it is if it wasn't for Florence Pugh's performance. And cinematography, I feel like Midsommar should have been at least nominated for Best Cinematography. But one was 1917. Who the fuck is still watching that movie? Who gives a fuck about that movie? I honestly don't. But the other nominees are The Irishman, okay, Joker. Alright, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. The Joker movie was cool, but I don't know. It was like all right to me. It wasn't like supremely stellar. And I mean, I get like the movie was about mental health, but I have seen better mental health movies, i.e. The Babadook. I'm sorry, but way more stellar talking about mental health than the Joker. But I mean, that's just my opinion. The Lighthouse, I mean, good to see a horror movie being nominated for cinematography, but come on, bro. Like, you telling me 1917 was a better cinematography shot film than The Lighthouse? But I get it. That movie was the movie that had that whole pan movement of the film, and it just looked like a continuous pan shot of like things happening in the movie. And they did that shit some type of way. I forget how they did it. I saw a video about how they filmed that movie, and I thought it was pretty dope. But at the end of the day, who the fuck is still talking about this movie? And the last movie was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is like, it makes sense. It's a fucking what's his name? Tarantino film. So yeah, those are the historic snubs. So let's talk about like how the Oscars continuously got it wrong, because this is just more than just snubs. I was on IG the other day and I saw a post by Art of Light and Shadow. They made a post about how a lot of the movies that were winners were wrong winners. So we're not even just talking about snubs anymore. We're talking about movies that actually won. And these are movies that are being told to us that these are the quality movies based on the Academy of people, motherfuckers we never even met before in our lives, telling us these are the movies that deserve our attention and time. So let me go ahead and tell y'all some of these movies that were told to us that were winners, but what they didn't elect or nominate, or even just like, yeah, what they didn't elect were these movies that stood the test of time. All right, so this post is like a 2-part series. I'm gonna try and go through it as fast as I can. I won't sit here and give too much commentary on it because, yeah, you know, your boy, you know, I'm pretty sure y'all know your boy tries to get out of here as fast as he can. But anyway, here are some of these historic winners and the ones that lost. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you'll be surprised about who won and who lost. So what won, and mind you, this is all best picture category, y'all. So these are all best picture categories. So what won? How Green Was My Valley beat out what should have won, Citizen Kane. What won? Going My Way beat out Double Indemnity, what should have won. Hamlet beat out The Red Shoes, what should have won. The Greatest Show on Earth beat out High Noon. Around the World in 80 Days beat out Giant. Gigi beat out The Defiant Ones. My Fair Lady beat out Dr. Strangelove. Now, this is where it gets to absurdities. This is where it gets to like movies that I'm like, wait, how did that movie beat out that movie? Oliver beats out 2001 A Space Odyssey. Actually, what should have won is what they say. It wasn't even nominated. It wasn't even nominated for Best Motion Picture. So to see a movie like Oliver win an Oscar over 2001 A Space Odyssey, who didn't even get nominated, by the way, for Best Picture, definitely absurd. Definitely absurd. And honestly, I feel like the Oscars just probably did not like Stanley Kubrick. But I mean, again, they probably didn't like him, especially after he put out Eyes Wide Shut. So, Ordinary People, like I mentioned earlier, won an Oscar over Raging Bull, which should have won. Chariots of Fire beats out Raiders of the Lost Ark. Who the hell is talking about Chariots of Fire these days? Out of Africa beats out The Color Purple, that's part one of their post. Part two, Driving Miss Daisy beats out Do the Right Thing. And actually was, this is a add on to this one too. Do the Right Thing wasn't even nominated for Best Picture, which should have won. Dances with Wolves beats out The Goodfellas. Forrest Gump beats out Pulp Fiction. Now here's where I'm gonna stop a bit. So I've seen Forrest Gump. I get why Forrest Gump won. And Forrest Gump is still literally like a movie people still watch to this day. I mean, it's still being satirized by a lot of shows and, you know, it's a lot of influences and what have you. But my nigga, Pulp Fiction didn't win? I'm sorry. Pulp Fiction is actually a way better movie than Forrest Gump. I'm sorry. I mean, a movie about a mentally disabled man who is simping for a terrible woman. And yeah, Jenny is a terrible person, bro. I'm sorry. It's like a movie about what you shouldn't do when it comes to the rules of engagement when talking to women or men or non-binary people, whatever your flavor is. I really don't give a fuck about what your flavor is. But this is a movie about showing you like how like you shouldn't just dedicate your life to someone who doesn't want you. Like honestly, like if I had a kid, I would literally show him this movie as a life lesson of, you see that bitch right there? Okay, I'm being way disrespectful, but you see this woman right here? We gonna chill because it is women history month. So yeah, you see this woman right here? You know, this is a woman you don't go after, son. You know, if this woman tells you she don't want you, move on, son, move on. You know, if she is disrespecting you in any type of way, son, you know, and I'm gonna be real. Jenny was mad disrespectful to Forrest. Sometimes it's just like, man, someone needs to put hands on Jenny, bro. But I mean, the hands of life actually got to Jenny. I mean, I believe she got if I'm not mistaken, she got AIDS or HIV, because I mean she was a 304, bro. She was a 304. This bro was simping over a 304, a small town 304, by the way. You know, I mean 304s come in like all shapes and sizes, you know. They ain't just what you see on Instagram, but yeah, bro, like this woman was a major 304, and Forrest was just like simping hard on this girl, hard, bro. I feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for Forrest, man. But you know what's crazy? And this is also a life lesson for us all. It's like, no matter how much success, because Broski was getting a lot of success, a lot of accolades. And it's like, Broski could have had any type of woman he wanted. But bro wanted this small town, bust down 304, who ain't even like a 7, bro. She ain't even a 7. Okay, let me not score her. Even though I just did. Again, it's women history month. So I mean, you know. But real talk, man, like I feel sorry for Forrest, but Pulp Fiction should have won. But I understand. Moving on. because we got a couple of more films to kind of go through this list. The English Patient beat out Fargo. Shakespeare in Love. Who the hell is still talking about that movie? Beat out Saving Private Ryan. Crash beat out Brokeback Mountain. Now, I'm going to pause for a second. I've seen both movies, and I'm gonna say it like this. Yes, Brokeback Mountain should have won. I've seen the movie Brokeback Mountain, and I didn't see it on my own free time. I actually saw this in school when I was in college. I had this, I forget what class it was. I believe it was a film and literature class. It was like books that got adapted into film. I remember having that class, and I remember watching that movie. And I mean, I for one was not really interested in watching Brokeback Mountain necessarily, because I just wasn't into possibly seeing any scenes that kind of made me uncomfortable. But after watching the movie, it's much more than homosexual tawdry, you know? It's more about two men who are in love with each other but can't be with each other. And it sucks. It sucks so bad, like, that they couldn't be with each other because one guy was open about his homosexuality, the other wasn't, and he was actually a married man, and that was Heath Ledger's character. And throughout the movie, when I was watching it, all I just kept thinking, like, dude, just be with him. Leave your wife. You're not in love with her. Just leave her. You know? Like, literally, that was the time I was on. I was like, dude, just leave her. Just leave her. You're not in love with her. Go be with your man, bro. Like, come on. But yeah, real talk. Brokeback Mountain should have won. But the movie that won was Crash. And I'm going to say this was Pander Festival. Like, if you wanted a movie to have you go and sit there and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what they're doing to the black people. You know, this was the movie to do that. Yeah, it was just a bunch of nonsense at the end of the day. At the time when it was out, and I'm gonna tell you this. Speaking for myself, yes, I fell for that pander. I've watched this film with my family, and I was sitting there eating up all the pander juice there was. I was eating up all the pander cereal that they were giving me. Oh my goodness, I can't believe what they're doing to Middle Eastern people, you know? I can't believe what they're doing to us black folks, you know? Oh my goodness, fuck the police, you know? Just all the pander that they could feed me. And when I rewatched this film, maybe like a couple of years ago, I think I really rewatched it, like, I can't remember when. I sat there and was like, this movie is terrible. like this movie is just a bunch of nothing. Like, it's just something to get you enraged and pander. Like, it's a terrible movie. It's a terrible, oh my goodness, I can't believe why this movie even won. Why? Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's going to be people out there like, come on, Doom, it wasn't that bad. You know, it was a good movie. You know, Black Lives Matter and all this other shit that they want to say. But, you know, I'm all for Black Lives. But this movie was not it, bro. This movie was not it. I'd rather watch Do the Right Thing than this bullshit. Do the Right Thing got it right. This movie got it wrong. This ain't it, bro. Crash ain't it. Brokeback Mountain should have won. But anyway, let me let me go ahead and get through the rest of this. Hurt Locker beats out Inglorious Bastards. How in the fuck did that happen? And they just don't like Quentin Tarantino. That's all that is. The King's Speech beats out the Social Network. The Artist beats out the Tree of Life. Green Book beats out Roma. Two movies that I really don't give a fuck about. Coda beats out Drive My Car, and that was the last one. So I didn't see both movies, but I know Coda was the sign language film. I could see why Coda won. And I mean, I'm not going to disrespect it like I disrespected the other movies, but the only reason I feel like that movie won because of the whole sign language aspect of that film. Nothing against it, but I mean, if you took away the sign language out of that film, what movie do you have? You know, what movie do you really have? But that's just my thoughts. The Oscars is just not about the awards that are being given or the people that are losing that should not be losing. But anyway, it also highlights a lot of like actors, actresses, directors who also passed away. The Grammys have it, the Oscars have it too. So I did not watch this year's Oscars like I mentioned before, but I heard the omissions and it was astronomically horrible. For those that are into, you already know who I'm talking about, but there are 3 people who were omitted from the in memory of, I forget what it's called, but yeah, their whole in memory of so and so's list of contributors to the Academy. There were 3 people that were omitted: Tony Todd, Michelle Trachtenberg, Shannon Doherty. Those 3 names, it's just a big mind blown. It's like, how do you omit those people? But it goes back to what I've been saying before. There is no respect for horror, and it just doesn't stop at just the movies. It also goes to our actors and actresses and contributors of the genre. But these 3 people are highly accomplished actors and actresses and have surpassed more than just being in horror. You know, you got Shannon Doherty, who is best known for her role as Brenda Walsh in Beverly Hills 90210, or Maggie Marlin in Little House on the Prairie. And for us horror people, you know, we know her as Heather Dukes in the Heathers. Well, in Heathers, not the Heathers. You know, and it's sad to see she was not even like considered in the in memory of portion of the show. You know, for those that don't know, Shannon Doherty died of cancer in July. She has been a long sufferer of Crohn's disease since 1999. She was diagnosed with stage 2 cancer in 2015. She managed to beat it out, but it came back in remission in 2020, and it was a stage 4, which is the worst kind of cancer to get, and it started developing in her liver. So she has had a very long running career since 1981 in both film and television. And you're telling me the Academy could not even acknowledge her in that list of other actors and actresses that they put on their list? Egregious. It is egregious that she was just not even mentioned in any of that. Michelle Trachtenberg, she was a star in Black Christmas, the 2006 version, but she also had other roles in as Dawn Summers on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She started her role out on The Adventures of Pete and Pete, which I used to watch as a kid. Show that used to come on Nickelodeon. Unfortunately, her death is still unknown to this day, and because of her family's religious beliefs, they did not want to make her death public. And let's talk about the big cheese himself, the one that was really like people noticed and was like, yo, why the Academy tripping, bro? Tony Todd. Tony Todd has had a very long-standing career, just not only in the horror community, but the animation community and voice acting community as well. He is very iconic in his various roles in Candyman, Hellfest, many DC animated films, playing Darkseid, and in the Final Destination movies. Tony Todd died last year due to cancer. Not really mentioned where the cancer was spread. Or at least I didn't find out where the cancer was or what type of cancer it was. But either way, he died of cancer. But for him to not really be mentioned in memory by the Oscars, atrocious. It is very atrocious. This man is very iconic in many ways. He has a very iconic voice next to Morgan Freeman. I can't remember home dude's name right now that played Mufasa, but James Earl Jones. Come on, man. He is very iconic. His voice is very iconic. You may not know the name, but you know the voice. Keith David, also another legendary person who has a very iconic voice and has many voice acting roles. But to see Tony Todd, and not to say any of these, because not all of them have passed away. They're just they're on the list of great voice actors that I could say what? I've heard his voice so many times on different things. Yeah. How could anyone not know him? And it's Tony Todd is not no small time actor. He's a big time actor. And yet the Academy deliberately not mention him at all. Now, I could get why someone would not mention somebody in memory of. When XXXTentacion passed away in, I forget what year it was, 2017 or 18, somewhere around that time, Broski had a court case against him for abuse. The Grammys, unfortunately, did not want to mention XXXTentacion in any type of in memory of at all because of those allegations. That's understandable. Tony Todd, who, to my knowledge, has no court cases against him, could not even get a fucking mention by the Academy. What is the deal with that? It's terrible. And the same thing goes for the other two actresses that passed away as well. It's terrible that the Academy just did not acknowledge them. And it just goes back to it being almost a slap in the face. Actually, not even almost. It is a slap in the face to us people who love the horror community and have always been praising this genre and have been always wanting to have this genre at least acknowledged as a stand-up genre to the masses. I'm going to close this out with, what should we do? Well, first off, if you guys are really Oscar people and horror lovers and you want the Oscars to recognize us as a formidable category or genre, let's argue for the diversity of this category and genre. Let's argue for a horror category. But not only for just that, but let's argue for other categories to get their own Oscar genre. There should be an action category. There should be a thriller category. There should be a sci-fi category, and so on and so on. If the Grammys could have a various amount of categories where they're celebrating all types of musical genres, I mean, they have even a spoken word category for the Grammys. They have a box set design category for the Grammys. If the Grammys could find ways to develop like all these vast different categories, why can't the Oscars? I mean, again, it's like the Oscars thrive on the big five as their marketing tool for people to watch. We're not in that conversation most of the time. Even though they're giving awards for animation, international film, and documentaries, whether it's short or long format, we can't even get a category that is mainly aimed for our genre to have horror, action, thriller, sci-fi, and more compete against these Oscar pending nut huggers is egregious in every way possible. There should be no reason that Saw has to compete with a movie like Gone Girl. There should be no reason that a Marvel movie has to compete with fucking Roma. There should be no fucking reason a stellar movie like They Clone Tyrone have to compete against a movie that is in the realms of Driving Miss Daisy. It's unfair. It's unfair to those movies. It's unfair to those genres. It's unfair to those people who created those movies and maybe had a dream to hopefully win an Oscar one day for their film. But it's like I said before, we're not in the conversation or the party. You know, there are many quality horror movies that are standouts. Get Out, Midsummer, I Saw the TV Glow, Late Night with the Devil. Quality movies out there. And they are going to continuously get snubbed because they are not part of that Oscar standard or party, or even like what we all like to say is a boys club with that academy. You know, like from what I've gathered about who is in this academy, you know, it's a lot of panelists who are just mid-career professionals to established veterans of that field. Now, their job is to watch movies and kind of like create this standard of, okay, well, does this movie belong in our award show, our nominees, or whatever? The thing is like, if you think about it in a career sense and about who these people are and what they do for a living, their visions is pretty much hardwired to whatever has been happening in the past years of the Oscars and past years of nominees and winners that they usually pick. So they have a standard and they have a vision, and their brains is pretty much hardwired to think a certain way. You know, and the way I was thinking about like the people of the academy, it's kind of like with a basketball player. You know, depending on what year the basketball player played, their brain is pretty much hardwired to think a certain way about basketball. Yeah, they'll still love the game. They'll still watch players of this generation and what have you. But they will have like this whole outline and thought process where it's like, okay, well, you know, if you're a ball player to be considered a legend, blah, 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 or an all-star, you need to have this, and this as like a go-to to be considered for any of that. And that's the same thing with the Oscars. The Oscar is not excluded from their thought processes on how they look at movies. You know, it's a boys club, quote unquote, because I'm pretty sure there's women in there, but it's a boys club of just like standards that does not align with what we love for our films and what we would expect to be possibly a movie that would be nominated in that realm or community. But that's okay. That's okay, because if any of y'all are like me and you just like don't give a fuck about all this mainstream bullshit anymore, or you're just grown exasperated by all of this, you know, just start valuing our award shows. Let's start valuing more of Fangoria's Chainsaw Awards or Dead Meat's award show. Let's start valuing more so about what people are doing in this community to uplift this community. Because at the end of the day, it's just like the government. They don't give a fuck about us. They don't. They never have and they never will. Yes, we will see a few horror movies break through into the Oscar realm, but until the day they actually give us our own category, our own standalone category, or even just nominating the right movies, fuck them. Alright, y'all, so welcome to the Slasher Corner. You know, this is the outro of the show. Y'all know this is usually the part where I talk about movies that I've watched as of late. Sadly, throughout this time, I have not been really watching too many films, per se. I've watched only quite a few movies as of late, at least horror wise, but a couple of movies that I want to say that I probably watched was Humanist Vampire. That's finally out on Shudder. I watched The Vodalak just recently. I don't remember when. That's also on Shudder. I saw the TV Globe, rewatched it again, and y'all can catch that movie on Max. I'm trying to think what other movies I've watched. Again, I didn't make a list of it. because I wanted to spend this time talking about something else. But yeah, and I think I've watched Nicole sometime last month. So yeah, that, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because I think I put this on a recording that I didn't release, but I watched rewatched like majority of the Saw movies again because it was for an episode, but I didn't get a chance. But well, I didn't not get a chance, but I didn't release that episode at all. But for this moment, for the slasher corner, those are the movies I've watched. But yeah, if y'all want to check those movies out, definitely check them out. But yeah, I just want to spend this time a little bit on this outro part, just talking about value, because there was a lot of talk about value for our community and for like our genre, because it is a genre that goes highly disrespected by a lot of people in the masses. I have heard the disrespect. I have even had disrespect hurled towards my way as well. Yeah, to me, we are a community that needs to stand tall, stand big over the devaluation of the genre, because a lot of work goes into these movies. Yeah, we may not have the best written films majority of the time, but it's never usually about what the writing is saying. It has always been about the monsters in the movie, the practical effects, and how much gore sometimes is in the film. But I say this to say the genre is much more than just blood and guts. And it goes back to my episode when I was talking about that one bitch. I'm sorry, it's Women's History Month. That one young lady was disrespecting our genre in a TikTok post, and talked about how disgusting it is that people who like horror movies must have something wrong with them. And I say this to say, it's like, and this goes beyond just like not only horror, but it also goes for ourselves. We need to stop letting loudmouth individuals, people who are super opinionated about practically everything, you know, who walk around like their shit don't stink, and tell us what is quality. Because at the end of the day, quality is subjective. Taste in movies is subjective. You know? And I say this to say, it's like horror has evolved more so over the years, more than any other genre that I have seen. I'm sorry for anybody who is like a musical lover, a comedy lover, you know, an action head or whatever. Horror has actually evolved more so than any other genre in the last 10 years. Maybe I'm going too far back. Let's give it a good 7. Let's give it a good 7. Let's give it a good 7, bro. Let's give it a good 7. I want to give it a good 7. But the point I'm making is there are so many great horror movies out there. And I mean, it's just like, it's not only just really gory. They're not all gory movies. But, you know, to see a movie like Terrifier 3, which started off from practically nothing, started off real small. Damien Leone started off real small, with his film. And it's evolved into like this colossal giant that it is. Art the Clown is now being seen by everybody and acknowledged, and people are just like, yeah, Art the Clown, that's that dude. That's evolving. That's evolving. I do love the evolution of what our community has become. I do love the evolution that our community is now becoming more than just this white bread society, which used to be like a thing back in like God who knows how long, because growing up in the 90s, if you said you like horror movies and rock music, and I'm speaking for me, I'm speaking for me as a black person, if you going around saying like, oh yeah, I like horror movies and rock music, other black people look at you like, why you like that white shit? I'm glad that now we could go ahead and like these so-called white shit without judgment. I am very appreciative about the internet on so many ways, because now I could get to meet other people who likes that white shit. You know what I'm saying? So, and I hate to sit here and like I sound preachy, or I'm just like, talking crazy for some, but I'm just saying, like, as a person, a black person at that, and growing up in the 90s, growing up in the 2000s, early 2000s, by the way, and going through the bullshit that I went through, and not only just me, but the society as well. I love that now in the time of 2025, I could proudly say, yes, I love movies like Terrifier. I was watching this movie in 2016 when Art the Clown split that bitch in half. I could say I'm a fan of movies like Saw. I could say I'm a fan of movies like I Saw the TV Glow. I could walk around proudly and say I watched even like lower tier movies like Deadstream or Videodrome, The Fly, Scanners, Eyes Without a Face, Diabolique. Shoot, I'm trying to think of other movies that like we could be fans of and walk around proudly. So yeah, I mean, and yeah, there are still those closed-minded people who will tell you, you're black, you shouldn't even be liking stuff like that. But you know what? Fuck those people. Fuck those people. I don't have them in my circle. And you, Team Doom, even though we're a small community and what have you, we're a small community, but passionate. We are passionate, So yeah, I want to be as loud as Tupac was about this genre. I'm not, and like I said before, I'm not gonna sit here and hit you with some behind the scenes. It's like y'all get that from like every other fucking podcaster, YouTuber that there is in the fucking world. What you're gonna get here is something different. Something different, something more passionate, and not just some stale, robotic, hey, this is what happened in this movie. This is what makes it cool. And I mean, it does sound like I'm kind of throwing shade at those creators. I'm not, because they got more followers than me, and probably got more clout than me, and probably got more power than me. But I don't give a fuck. You know, at the end of the day, I want you, Team Doom, whenever you listen to this podcast, to come out with something from it. Whether it's inspiration, whether it's a want to watch whatever film that I talk about, or if I'm just speaking to you and you relate to this shit and you just say, man, you know what, Walterdoom, you really inspired me with what you just said. That is all I want y'all to come out with. You know, I'm not going to try and make you seem fake smart by knowing a bunch of stuff about a film and what have you, because I'm not that knowledgeable, you know, and I'll be the first to tell you I'm not knowledgeable. But the thing is, 100 plus episodes, and y'all could look through this fucking YouTube page and what have you, and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you're on, and truly see, bro, I do this for the passion. I do this for the love. I don't do this for the clout. I don't do it for the revenue. As much as I would love to get paid by it, but it's like, at the end of the day, this is much more than horror, man. And this is Film and Guts with Walterdoom signing out. This is America. Don't let them catch you slipping now. Stay diabolical, people. Peace.